You don't need me to tell you that the petrol prices have surged beyond affordability. We're now told that the national average petrol price is $2.11 a litre, 11 cents a litre, which revisits records reached during last year's global energy crisis. But it's another blow to households struggling with cost of living pressures. Albanese and Co are silent. Prices in Brisbane jumped 30 cents in a week last week to $2.29 a litre. Unleaded petrol averaged $1.95 a litre in Perth, $2.13 in Canberra and $2.14 in Hobart. But Canberra, the politicians, remain silent. Of course, rising fuel prices, they're now saying, add to inflation, which they do. So don't tell us now the Reserve Bank is going to jack up interest rates to curb inflation. I mean, this is madness, and the punter can't handle it. Increased petrol prices are one thing. Increasing the price of money is another, although the Reserve Bank this week left things as they are. But mortgaged households are struggling with a 50% increase in their home loan repayments. 50% after a dozen hikes pushed the RBA's cash rate from 0.1% in May last year to 4.1% in June, where it now stands. I've referred to this many times. Our energy policy is a mess on all fronts. Energy policy can be simply stated or evaluated. The energy we need to power the nation must be available, reliable and affordable. That's it. That's all you need to know. Under Bowen, Albanese and Labor, we have bad policy which achieves none of the above. And as I said earlier, with federal court intervention, pandering to minority Aboriginal interests, the availability of energy to us is now being threatened. So I discussed with Nick Cater last night, this so-called transition to lower emissions will fail. We cannot power the nation on renewable energy. As Nick said to me last night, you have a simple choice. If you want to keep the lights on and business going, it's coal or nuclear. Given that nuclear isn't available to us because of legislation, even though we're exporting uranium to the rest of the world so they can have cheap and clean energy, then the answer is a simple one, a single word, coal. The Australian Energy Producers Chief Executive, Samantha McCulloch, has warned of the logjam of more than 40 environmental approvals that remain in limbo. 40. These are outfits that want to increase our energy quotient, can't get there. 40 environmental approvals, not given. The courts, of course, sending us into energy poverty. The only person talking sense in the government is Madeleine King, the Resources Minister. She's warned that decreasing gas supply, which is what the federal court is potentially doing, decreasing gas supply faster than demand will lead to, her words, shortages, supply disruptions and high prices. I don't know how she sits around the table with Albanese and Bowen, while also, she said, worsening poverty and inequality. Now, she was the person, remember, who said back in August, quote, in my view, every East Coast-based parliamentarian and journalist should experience Perth Airport on any given Monday or Tuesday at 5 a.m. to witness the extraordinary airlift of workers into the north that occurs week in, week out to ensure our nation's continued prosperity off the back of our remarkable geology and the efforts of the resources industry. In other words, they're taking off at 5 o'clock in the morning to work on mining projects. At that Bush summit in Perth in August, Madeleine King, the Labor Federal Resource Minister, said bluntly, many East Coast urban Australians have lost sight of where their food, prosperity and energy come from. Now, of course, this is a Labor government under siege from the Greens, the Teals and the environmental groups. But even Madeleine King messes her own nest when she keeps talking about energy transition. What does that mean? Does this government believe we can transition from coal and gas to renewable energy and power the economy? Because we can't. But where is the coalition? What are they saying? What do they believe in? Can they say simply, we can't power this nation on renewable energy, we must have coal and nuclear power? Pretty simple. And then ask the electorate to decide. What is more, everywhere you turn, our export market is under siege. So where does the money come from to fund our economy? Natural gas earnings are forecast to drop from $93 billion last year to $71 billion this year and $63 billion next year. Our lithium exports are forecast to decrease to $18 billion this year and $16 billion next year, down from a record $20 billion last year. Earnings from metallurgical coal used for steel making is expected to fall. By the way, the same steel that makes all those, wind turbines. Metallurgical coal, which is used for steel making, is expected to fall from 62 billion last year to 47 billion this year and 41 billion next year. Thermal coal earnings are forecast to climb to 36 billion next year from 66 billion this year, and a further fall to 28 billion in 2024-25. How is that revenue shortfall going to be made up? The punter will pay with increased debt.